Darkness, not just the absence of light, but a weight, thick and suffocating like grief held too long. Adrian Hale sat slumped in the rust-bitten chair, wrists raw against chains, the taste of blood and smoke permanent on his tongue. The interrogation room had no windows, no time, only pain, only the echo of her name in his skull. Elara. He replayed the interrogator's words on a loop, like a record made of barbed wire. She didn't give you up, she died with your name on her lips. He wanted to believe it, needed to, because if she broke, then maybe love wasn't strong enough, maybe none of it was real. But he remembered her hands, her stubborn silence, the way she once said, "If they want me to talk, they'll have to tear my throat out first." And maybe they did. He stared at the torn patch thrown at his feet, her unit emblem, blood-stained, burnt at the edges, proof. Still, his mind conjured her voice, soft, steady, just above the sound of distant shelling. "Adrian, if you're hearing this, something's gone wrong, but know this. I never stopped looking for you. Even when it got dark, even when it got ugly, I carried you with me. Was it a memory, a dream, madness?" He didn't know. But in that room, in that place beyond maps and borders, her voice was the only thing that kept him tethered to the ruins of himself. Days passed, maybe weeks. Time stopped existing. There were only beatings, darkness, and silence. He counted by bruises, by how long his stomach growled, by how often his captors forgot he was once a man and not a target. He heard rats at night. Once one ran across his foot. He didn't flinch. Pain was no longer foreign, fear no longer useful. He fed on the rage instead. He dreamed of her sometimes. In one dream, she was sitting by a stream, the water mirroring her face, her rifle across her lap, and she looked at him and said, "You're going to be all right, Hale, but you'll have to bleed first." He woke up crying. They made a mistake. One night, during a sandstorm that howled like a banshee across the desert, one of the guards nodded off just long enough. Maybe it was pity, maybe it was fate. Maybe Elara was pulling the strings from beyond. Adrian broke the chair leg, used it as leverage, snapped bone and windpipe in one movement. He barely blinked. By dawn he was free, bloodied, half dead, ribs cracked but free. He dressed in what he could find, a mix of enemy fatigues and his old uniform, then limped through the corridors like a phantom. He passed other cells, some empty, some not. He opened none. He was looking for one thing only, Elara. He found the room where they'd kept her. He knew by the wall, the scratches, the initials carved faintly near the floor. EMA crude calendar of scratches counting days. He counted them. She survived for 27 days, alone, tortured, waiting. He found the pit outside the compound at sunrise, corrugated steel, buried in sand. It was the fourth one he opened. Inside, bones, torn fabric, a single boot, her dog tag, Elara Morgan Hale. The earth tilted. He dropped to his knees and let the silence take him. His hands curled around the tag like a relic. He pressed it to his forehead and whispered things no one else would ever hear. The way she used to tap her fingers on his chest when she couldn't sleep. The time she kissed him under a helicopter blade just before it took off. The promise she made the night before her last mission. "Come find me if I don't come back. But don't come as a soldier. Come as my husband." He buried what was left of her with his hands, dug until his nails split and the desert drank his tears. He wrapped the tag in his scarf, sang her favourite tune through cracked lips, left a bullet beside her, one she'd carved his initials into long ago. Then he stood and became something else. Not a soldier, not a husband, a reckoning. Adrian didn't flee. He walked back into the fire. One by one, he eliminated the outpost's leadership, a ghost in their walls. He painted messages in blood, left Elara's name in their hallways. They feared her now, feared him. Within weeks, the outpost burned. Radio silence, black smoke swallowed the compound. By the time reinforcements arrived, there was nothing but ash. And in the centre, scorched into the sand, she never broke. He was found wandering near the Euphrates 2 days later by a UN medical unit, delirious, silent, holding a blood-stained scarf. They asked who he was. He answered, her husband. 2 years later, Arlington Cemetery. The sky was overcast, the grass wet with morning rain. Adrian stood beneath a weeping cherry tree, the only splash of colour in a sea of grey. Her grave was simple, white marble, clean lines. Elara Morgan Hale, nitten nittetre titutupsen ochuetra. Hero, flame, wife. He knelt the same way he had the first time he told her he loved her. He placed a folded letter beneath the stone, the one she'd written him, the one he'd carried into hell and back. Then he took out a second letter, his own, and read it aloud. Elara, I never found the right words. War always stole them. But I remember how your laugh made silence beautiful. I remember how you looked at me like I was still a man, even after all the killing. I remember how you promised to come back, and I came for you. I kept that promise. We just met differently than I thought we would. You didn't break. I did. And maybe that's okay. Maybe I can carry that too, for both of us. He placed the second letter on her stone, weighed it down with her dog tag, touched the carved name with his thumb. The wind picked up. The cherry tree shivered, and for a moment he swore he heard her voice in the rustling leaves. You came for me. He smiled, just once. Then walked away, boots heavy in the soft earth, a man half whole, a soul stitched together by grief and memory, and love, the kind that doesn't die, the kind that lives in ashes. Like, subscribe, and turn on notification for more ink and intimacy stories.